Breaking news, the Department of Homeland Security has just confirmed to CNN that federal law enforcement agents have raided properties owned by musician and producer Sean Diddy Combs. Let's bring in CNN security correspondent Josh Campbell and CNN legal analyst Joey Jackson. Josh, let me start with you. What do these raids by federal agents in multiple locations tell you about the seriousness of this investigation?
Yeah, Wolf, a very significant development here, seeing this law enforcement action taking place. I'll point out, just to be clear at the outset, we don't know that Sean Diddy Combs himself is the subject or target of a federal investigation. So it's just worth pointing that out at this hour. But what we do know is that two properties associated with him, we saw the feds descend on those properties. We saw on aerial footage, federal agents both here in the Los Angeles area as well as in Miami at those residences. Now, the Department of Homeland Security, their what's called HSI, Homeland Security Investigations, gave CNN a statement. I'll read you part of that when asked about what this activity is. They say that earlier today, HSI New York executed law enforcement actions as part of an ongoing investigation with assistance from HSI Los Angeles, HSI Miami, and our local law enforcement partners. That is it, confirming that they are conducting what they're deeming law enforcement action, which could indicate search warrants being conducted there, could indicate arrests being conducted. We just don't know at this hour specifically what that law enforcement action is. It is worth pointing out, though, that Combs himself obviously has faced significant legal woes in recent months.
Yekba. I think this is an offshoot of the Cassie Ventura civil case. For those not in the know, Cassie was a long-term girlfriend of Diddy who alleged grievous crimes against Diddy last year, and he settled out of court for an undisclosed sum. The crimes ranged on sexual assault and other related offenses. However, it never made the court system because it was a civil case. I think as part of that case, she possibly provided information that led to these raids, which happened late yesterday. So what does the Homeland Security Investigations do? Homeland Security Investigations is an investigative arm of the U.S. Department of Homeland Security. They are responsible for investigating a wide range of criminal activities that threaten the security and integrity of the United States. Some key functions and responsibilities of the HSI include transnational crime, immigration enforcement, counterterrorism, export enforcement, intellectual property rights, cybercrime. But I think for this particular case, I'm going to talk more on transnational crime. So what's transnational crime? So it involves things like drug trafficking, human smuggling and trafficking, weapon smuggling, money laundering, etc. And then child exploitation, which relates to child exploitation, including child pornography, child sex trafficking, online enticement, and the sexual exploitation of children. So for this team to have raided his house, they must have gotten a search warrant, right? Now, investigators from the HSI must present evidence to a federal judge or magistrate demonstrating probable cause that a crime has been committed, and that evidence of the crime is likely to be found at the location to be searched. Hint, hint, the two houses that were searched yesterday. The evidence must be sworn to under oath in a written affidavit, and the judge or magistrate will review the affidavit to determine whether there is sufficient probable cause to issue the warrant. Now, once the search warrant is issued, law enforcement officers, whether from the FBI or HSI, can conduct a raid or search of the specified location, which may include a home, business, vehicle, or other property, to seize evidence relevant to the investigation. During the raid, officers are required to adhere to legal standards and protocols to ensure that the search is conducted lawfully and that the rights of individuals are protected. Why is this important? It's important to set the background of the legality. So the HSI had the authority to search warrants from federal courts to conduct raids, and they also had the authority to get into his properties. What we don't know for certain is why they went into into his properties. But because of what I've just said just now, we know that is a number of things. It could be the child sex trafficking that they were after him for, or it could be the human trafficking that they were after him for. and it could definitely be an offshoot from the Cassie case, which I mentioned earlier.
I'll give you just a kind of the highlights of what actually occurred. In November, he was sued for rape and abuse by a former partner. That lawsuit was then settled very quickly. But in December, he faced sexual assault allegations in a complaint filed in the Southern District of New York. The suit was brought by a woman referred to as Jane Doe, who said that she was 17 at the time when these allegations took place back in 2003. He was accused of sex trafficking and gang rape, among other allegations, also in that suit naming two of his associates. Of course, Combs denied any wrongdoing there. And then just last month, a former employee of Combs filed a suit also in the state of New York, accusing him of sexual assault, of sexual harassment, and, quote, grooming. That former employee stated that he had worked for Combs between 2022 and 2023. Among those allegations, this former employee, a male employee, said that Combs did not compensate him for his music production work and forced him to procure and interact with sex workers, threatened him with serving alcoholic beverages laced with drugs to guests at parties at Combs' home. And then Combs' son, Justin Combs, was also accused of soliciting prostitutes and underage girls at his father's homes. Again, the Combs have denied any wrongdoing, but just a series of allegations that we've seen taking place. Final point, Wolf, I'll note is that while we don't know the specific allegations or why the feds are at these residences, it is worth pointing out the agency that is conducting this law enforcement activity. It's not the FBI, it's not the DEA or the ATF. This is HSI, Homeland Security Investigations. For those unfamiliar, this is an agency that has long been the forefront specifically at human trafficking investigations. So although we don't have the specifics yet, we're starting to we can glean just based on which agency has the lead, the direction this might go. But again, we don't yet know that Combs himself was the target of the investigation, Wolf. We do know that at this hour that federal agents were at two of his homes, both here in Los Angeles and in Florida, Wolf.
Yeah.
He hasn't been charged of any crime yet. But definitely doesn't look good for his image. It hasn't looked good for his image for several months now, with court case after court case. But this is the law they were talking about. We cannot just assume that he's guilty. He's innocent till proven guilty. But here's a question. If the first case, here's a question. When the first case happened, which was November, why did it take so long for the feds, HSI in this case, to get the search warrant and raid his properties? If anybody knows, please put it down in the comments. I don't know how slow or how fast the justice system is. But for me, I'm just thinking he had a case in November 2023. This is March 2024. How many months is that? That's going to 4 months. If he had any incriminating evidence, wouldn't he have disposed of it by now? Would he wait for the feds to come to his house and raid him? Is that how these things happen in the real world? Wouldn't he have gotten rid of it? And then they came for two reasons. They would have come to either arrest him or people related to him, related to the case. Or number two, seeking evidence, which is why they came with so many cars and so many trucks and, armed militia, etc.
Important points. Joey Jackson, now let me repeat, we don't know if Sean Diddy Combs himself is under investigation, but clearly, Joey, it's not good if your homes are actually being raided.
And by the way, where is Diddy? Where is Diddy in all this? We understand that he's not in the house. It was not found in any of the properties, although his sons were actually in one of the properties. He's rumored to be out of the United States, destination unknown.
No, it's not, Wolf. And I think, whatever conclusions can be drawn remain to be seen, right? There's not an indictment that we're talking about. That means that we're not speaking of a grand jury having rendered a conclusion, not as to guilt. That's not what grand jurors do, but as to reason to believe that a crime was committed and he committed them. Having said that, whenever you have a raid and an investigation, these things need to be really predicated upon, right, the precursor for this to happen would be some probable cause. What is that probable cause? We don't know. But let's go back to what Josh Campbell talked about, which are those various lawsuits. Now, lawsuits are civil actions in nature. They're not criminal at all. But what they do is they give authorities some guidelines and guideposts with respect to alleged conduct that was engaged in, with regard to who it was engaged in, what activities there were, what it involved. And so that, if there's an investigation, could serve as a source of plentiful information. That information could be further investigated, right, by certainly this Homeland Security Agency. And as a result of that, they can work with their local law enforcement partners. What does that mean? It means that they, collectively, law enforcement, try to determine whether there's reason to believe that crimes were committed, and, were those crimes carried out and associated in any way we don't know, with Sean Combs. And so that remains to be seen. But before authorities, Wolf, can get into the home or property of anyone, you have to establish some firm basis to do that. And that is what at least we can conclude, that they had reason to believe that there were crimes involving sex trafficking, apparently, and that these areas potentially can give more information with respect to the specifics. And I think they would be looking for computer devices and other devices which would seem to indicate or give information as to whether there was any criminality very early in the process. But certainly we know that these have been carried out, and we'll see what, if any, information is gleaned to be suggestive of any criminality.
So I don't want to get carried away with this raid. If anybody remembers, I think sometime in 1993, Michael Jackson's house, the late great Michael Jackson's house, was raided in his absence, and it was everywhere. It was on CNN, it was on Fox. There were cars and cars and cars, and they didn't find anything there. And he was investigated for, I think, 12 years, leading to his passing in 2009. And they didn't find anything. There was nothing incriminating that they ever found with him. I'm not saying this is going to be the same thing with Diddy, but I'm saying that because someone has been raided or someone's property has been raided does not mean that they are guilty of any offenses or crimes or allegations against them. It just means that there's probable cause for a department agency, a federal agency, to raid a property or a set of properties with a view to either arresting the inhabitants of that property to get them to speak on the particular case, or to seek evidence. And that evidence could be from hard disks, could be from flash drives, it could be from even the footage, and anything that they can find that they would have, from the trucks that I saw outside through the video that I just showed you. Those guys don't seem they're going to be there for a couple of hours. They seem like they're camping there for weeks until a time where Diddy resurfaces or issues out a statement so that we can know where he is and what he has to say on the topic. So this is a developing news, and I'm sure in the next couple of days we'll know more. I'm going to stay close to it. And if anything else comes up on this case, I will let you know. If you're new to my channel, please subscribe, like, and share the content. See you in the next one.